Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, I'm going to be giving you guys Fantasy Football 2020 Sleeper wide receivers, and you guys are not going to want to miss out on any of this Fantasy Football content I'm going to be throwing out at you guys all off season long and all season long once the 2020 season starts. The coronavirus may be getting you down, but it ain't going to get me down because I'm going to be hammering out these videos so that you guys have something fun to watch every single morning. If you guys want to get on my channel, if you could please go on the Apple Podcast app if you have an iPhone and follow my podcast, Notorious Fantasy Football. It's the same videos though, but in podcast form, and leave a review, a 5-star review, and a comment. I'll make sure to post it in the next video. So let's get into this Fantasy Football 2020 Sleeper wide receivers. I'm going to be giving you guys 5 total wide receivers in this video. So my first wide receiver to talk about here is Scary Terry McLaurin, or F1 Terry McLaurin, whatever tickles your fancy, of the Washington Redskins. Wide receiver number 29 on fantasypros.com. Now, there's no real ADP to be looking at here yet thus far. There just really isn't any ADP that I have found. Obviously, as we progress through the offseason, you're going to be able to find ADP much easier online, but the 29 ranking, I think, is way too low for Scary Terry McLaurin, who could potentially be a top 20 wide receiver, even a top 15 wide receiver in 2020. That really wouldn't surprise me. Now, in 2019, talking about his stats, he was wide receiver number 29 in 2019 in his rookie season. 13.7 PPR points per game, 191.9 total PPR points, 14 total games, 58 receptions, 93 total targets, 919 yards, which is 27th amongst wide receivers, and 7 total touchdowns, 13th amongst wide receivers. Now, those numbers don't scream out elite talent, but we saw last season him put up some real elite-looking games. He put up multiple games last season where he was looking like a elite wide receiver talent. I know he did have some down games, but he was on the Washington Redskins, a team that's O-line looked dead. Their quarterback looked dead. Now, obviously, next season they should have Dwayne Trashcan Hashcan still being the quarterback, but I think he gets better in his sophomore season in the NFL. I think that Terry McLaurin is going to be great yet again now. They both played on Ohio State together, I believe. They both played at the same college together. I know that. And then somehow, once they got to the pros, Dwayne Haskins forgot how to throw the ball to Terry McLaurin. I don't understand how that's possible. I don't understand how that's even a thing, but it was. I think in 2020, Scary Terry McLaurin has a much better season. I think that he's a guy that the Washington Redskins could really rely on. He is really the only wide receiver option on the team, if you think about it. Name another wide receiver on the Washington Redskins. If you're not a Washington Redskins fan, I doubt you can even do it. I think in 2020, he's going to have a great season, especially if the Washington Redskins manage to draft well, get a bit of an O-line, and get Chase Young at the 102 in the 2020 NFL Draft. Now, the second wide receiver here is my favorite wide receiver that people are really sleeping on late, or not late here in drafts, but in like the 6th, 7th, 8th round, and that is Tyler Boyd of the Cincinnati Bengals, wide receiver number 34 rankings on fantasypros.com. He finished wide receiver number 18 in 2019. So the fact that he's wide receiver 34 and he finished as wide receiver 18, to me, throws up some red flags and gives me a bit of confusion. He finished with 13.9 PPR points per game in 16 games, 222.9 total PPR points, 90 total receptions, 147 targets, 146 yards, 22nd amongst wide receivers, and 5 total touchdowns, 34th amongst wide receivers. Sure, he wasn't scoring a bunch of touchdowns, but he was doing it with some garbage quarterbacks. Last season, he was dealing with Andy Dalton, who's actually pretty good. Andy Dalton's not that bad of a quarterback, but he did have some bad quarterbacks on that team. He had what was that guy? Oh, shit, I forgot his name. He had Ryan Finley is his name. He had Andy Dalton. He was having a carousel of garbage quarterbacks over there in Cincinnati. I think that when they draft Joe Burrow and the first overall pick in the 2020 NFL Draft, Tyler Boyd will play better. Now, I know there are going to be people in the comments that are going to be truthers. They're going to be telling me, oh, Nick, AJ Green was not there, and that's why Tyler Boyd was so good. Once AJ Green comes back, Tyler Boyd is going to be terrible, you fucking idiot. And I know people are going to say that. So let's pull up some facts here about my boy Tyler Boyd, because I know some people they don't understand the true facts about my boy Tyler Boyd. So Tyler Boyd in 2018 and 19, now in split with AJ Green. In split means games played with Tyler Boyd. He put up 9 games with AJ Green, 17.44 PPR points per game, which is 279 total. His receptions was 6.11 per game, receiving touchdown 0.56 per game, 8.22 targets per game, and 76.67 yards per game. Out of the split, 21 games, 13.85 total yards, 13.85, my bad, PPR points per game, 5.26 receptions per game, I should say 29. 0.33 receiving touchdowns, 8.62 targets, and 64.57 yards. So the only stat that goes up when AJ Green isn't there is his receptions by a little number. Tyler Boyd is still going to be peppered with targets regardless who is the quarterback in 2020. When it's going to be Joe Burrow, that's not going to matter. The fact that AJ Green might be back does not matter. He plays even better with AJ Green, so if AJ Green comes back, Tyler Boyd may be even better, but I like him regardless of who is there in 2020, if it is AJ Green or not. I think Tyler Boyd could be a wide receiver one for a team, but I think he gets even bigger of an advantage when the other corners are worried about and the defense is worried about a guy like AJ Green. Now onto the third wide receiver of the video, and that is Marvin Jones of the Detroit Lions, wide receiver number 41 rankings on fantasypros.com. If you guys have enjoyed this video thus far, please make sure to click that subscribe button down below. He finished as wide receiver 28 in 2019 in only 13 games, so he could have been much higher if he played in all 16 games. 14.9 PPR points per game, 143.9 PPR points, 13 games, like I said, 62 receptions, 92 targets, 779 yards, 36th amongst wide receivers, and 9 total touchdowns, third amongst wide receivers. Now, that touchdowns were amazing. He was getting touchdowns like every single game he was playing. He was playing off the chain, but he was a bit inconsistent. Now, he had some games where he was scoring like 3 touchdowns, 200 yards, and then he had games where he was on a downward turn. But I think in 2020, Marvin Jones will be much more reliable now. You might be wondering, Nick, why is that? And that is because I'm going to show you the big stats right here. Marvin Jones of the Detroit Lions. This is a split with Matthew Stafford and without Matthew Stafford in 2019. He played 8 total games in the split with Matthew Stafford, 16.49 PPR points per game, 5.25 receptions per game, 0.75 touchdowns per game, 7.12 targets per game, and 66.88 receiving yards per game. When Matthew Stafford was not playing, 5 games, 12.4 PPR points, 4 receptions per game, a whole reception and 1/4 per game less, 0.6 receiving touchdowns per game, targets per game, 7 down a bit. And out of the split, he had only 48.8 yards. So if Matthew Stafford can stay healthy, Marvin Jones will be a very hot commodity to own late in drafts in 2020. I believe people are going to sleep on him. Everyone's on the Kenny Golladay train, and so am I. I love Kenny Golladay in 2020, but that does not mean I don't believe Marvin Jones could perform in 2020. If you guys remember last year, if you're playing fantasy football in 2019, many people, including myself, talked about how Marvin Jones and Kenny Golladay were 1A, 1B. Kenny Golladay 1A, Marvin Jones 1B, and I think that is still possible. While I think Kenny Golladay will finish higher than Marvin Jones, I think Marvin Jones will take a crack at it if Matthew Stafford is healthy to potentially be a guy that is going to be a very reliable flex or a very reliable wide receiver 2 in so many games in 2020. Now, the next wide receiver to talk about here, the second to last wide receiver, is Mr. Nikhil Harry of the New England Patriots, wide receiver 57 ranking on Fantasy Pros. Now, I kind of understand why he's ranked at 57 on Fantasy Pros. Right now, we don't know if TB12 Tom Brady is going to be the quarterback of the New England Patriots in 2020. Now, last year, he was drafted as a first-round pick by the New England Patriots, pick 32. Sure, that's the last pick in the first round, but they wanted to go get him. They drafted a wide receiver with their first pick of the draft. This guy dealt with an injury all summer long and then was placed on IR on September 2nd, 2019. And then he eventually came back and played 7 games down the stretch and played in the playoffs as well for the New England Patriots. And you saw where the New England Patriots went in the playoffs. They got absolutely smacked by the Detroit Lions, but in 7 games in 2019 regular season, 12 receptions on 24 targets, which is about exactly a 50% catch ratio, 105 total yards, 2 touchdowns, 39.4 PPR points, and 5.6 points per game. So that's not going to crawl out to you as being an elite guy. All these other guys before him were guys that put up big numbers in 2019 but are just being really slept upon. Now, this guy, he didn't do anything in 2019 realistically, but I think they drafted him highly. I think that he is going to be getting a lot more usage in 2020. Like I said, he was banged up all summer long, so he wasn't necessarily getting the best reps in practice, and then he missed the first a zillion games of the season. He missed the first 10 games of the season. So what was he supposed to do? Tom Brady did not really find his connection with him. I think if Tom Brady is back in 2020, Nikhil Harry, a guy who was drafted pretty highly in 2019 fantasy football drafts, he was a top 5 rookie pick in dynasty leagues. I think Nikhil Harry could tear it up in 2020, and the pick you're going to get on him, he's a flyer wide receiver. He's a late round guy that you find off the back of the draft. He's a guy that may go undrafted in your leagues if people aren't buying into him. And he's a guy that I'm 100% drafting in round 13 or later. In pretty much all my fantasy football drafts, I really like the value Nikhil Harry brings to my fantasy football team. And the final wide receiver of the video is Rashad Perriman, wide receiver 60 on fantasypros.com. But he doesn't have a team because right now he's on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but he's a free agent. Where will he end up going? Leave that down below in the comments. Me and all my friends discussed this on a video. I'm still not sure where he's going. The ideal landing spot for Rashad Perriman, though, is the Green Bay Packers, and we will find out soon. If you guys have enjoyed this video thus far, please, guys, click that subscribe button down below. So, after becoming a used wide receiver in Week 14 following the Evans injury, and then he became the head wide receiver, pretty much the wide receiver one. They had another guy there who was also catching a lot of balls, but Perriman was the number one guy after Godwin got hurt the next week in Week 15. So, in Week 14, without Evans, in Indianapolis, 3 receptions on 6 targets for 70 yards and 1 total touchdown, 16 PPR points. Week 15 against the Detroit Lions, 5 receptions on 6 targets for 113 total yards and 3, not 1, not 2, but 3 total touchdowns for 34.6 PPR points. Week 16 up against the Houston Texans, 7 receptions on 12 targets for 102 total yards and 0 touchdowns, 17.2 PPR points. In Week 17 up against the Atlanta Falcons, 5 total receptions on 8 targets for 134 yards and 1 touchdown, 24.4 PPR points. Now, if he could become on a team like the Packers or any other team where he could potentially be the wide receiver 2 on the team, he could be an amazing late-round flyer pick. A lot of people don't know Rashad Perriman. Rashad Perriman was kind of a bust coming into the league. He was on the Baltimore Ravens for 2 years, didn't really do anything, then went to Cleveland. He was on Cleveland, so he didn't really have a chance. And last season on Tampa Bay, he really emerged and showed me, personally, he catered his game to me. He showed just me. He showed everyone how fucking good he is. He has the talent to be a top-tier wide receiver in fantasy football if he lands on a good situation. If he's back in Tampa Bay, throw this out the window. You don't want him. But if he's going to the Jets, if he goes to the Jets and Robbie Anderson is gone, if he goes to the Green Bay Packers, if he goes to the Oakland Raiders, he could be a fucking certified beast late in your fantasy football 2020 draft. So that concludes the video. Let me know, guys, where Rashad Perriman is going to go. Make sure to click that subscribe button that is on me right now. Check the video above me, or to the right, or to the top, or to the left, or to the top left of the video. Please make sure to click that subscribe button. You guys are not going to want to miss out. Have a great rest of your day. I love each and every single one of you guys. Make sure that you remember that. More videos will be coming every single day, every single week, because the grind does not stop over here on the Notorious Fantasy Football channel. Make sure to tell your family you love them. Make sure to tell your loved ones you love them. And if you don't have any of those, just make sure you tell someone you love them. Make sure you tell people that are important to you that you love them, because it really does mean a lot, because any day could be your last. Have a blessed rest of your day. I love you guys, as always.